Welcome to the session from Suez to the Bab el-Mandeb, Securing Strategic Choke Points. I'm grateful to moderate this panel about the Red Sea crisis, since it really combines political, military, and expert perspectives. And I feel this can be an added value to discuss such a multidimensional topic. I'm honored to welcome our distinguished panelists, starting from the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates of Yemen, Dr. Mohsen al-Zindani. Welcome. The Minister of State for Foreign Affairs of Somalia, Mr. Ali Mohammed Omar. Welcome. The former Force Commander of EUNAVFOR Aspides, Real Admiral Stefano Costantino. Thank you for being here. And the Co-Executive Director for Knowledge Production of the Sana'a Center for Strategic Studies, Dr. Yasmin Aleriani. Welcome. The Red Sea crisis with the Houthis attacks against shipping emphasizes the political fragmentation of the current global order. Since a coordinated response, or at least a cooperation, between regional and international powers is lacking. And this, of course, despite freedom of navigation, is a public good, a collective interest. In order to make sense of the Red Sea crisis, we must look at what's going on in Yemen. We must look also at Iran. And to understand why the Bab el-Mandeb choke point is in trouble, it's also useful to assess the multiple insecurity drivers spreading between the southern Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. There are 2 points that I would like to raise to kick off the discussion this morning. The first is about connectivity. The Red Sea crisis occurs while political and power relations in the Middle East, and especially in the Gulf region, are increasingly driven by networks. Think to the expansion of commercial ports, to commercial exchanges, and also to the IMEC project. But connectivity stands exactly at the opposite of maritime disruption or even interdiction. And the Red Sea crisis indirectly affects also interlinked security theaters like the Horn of Africa, more broadly the Western Indian Ocean, and also the Mediterranean. Yesterday, I listened with great interest at the speech of Dr. Samir Saran, the president of the ORF, when he stressed that the war will not stop big projects. Maybe. In the meantime, however, security threats are testing the resolve of partners in pursuing projects when these are related to this waterway. The second and last point is about deterrence. The Red Sea crisis sheds light on the limits of state powers' deterrence in tackling threats coming from non-state armed actors. And these threats are also multi-domain. Think to the Houthis. They attack ships with missiles, drones, drone boats. They use sea mines, but they also hijack ships. And the lack of effective deterrence tools represents a big issue for all, starting from neighboring GCC states, which are implementing ambitious economic diversification programs that are also related to the Red Sea coast of the Arabian Peninsula. Think to Saudi Arabia. Minister Zindani, I would like to start with you. The Yemen war has entered its 10th year, and the national truce, which technically expired in 2022, is still quite observed by warring parties on the ground. Warring parties who committed to a UN roadmap for a ceasefire in December 2023. But how does the Red Sea crisis currently influence the war in Yemen, and what impact does it have on ceasefire prospects? The floor is yours.
شكرا جزيلا على تفضلكم باستضافتنا في هذا المنتدى. والواقع أن الحديث عن الأزمة في البحر الأحمر هي مرتبطة أيضا بجذور الأزمة اليمنية بشكل عام، والتي لها أبعادها الوطنية وأيضا الإقليمية والدولية. بالتأكيد نحن في الحكومة اليمنية لم نتفاجأ بمثل هذه الأعمال لجماعة الحوثي في البحر الأحمر، لأنها كانت سابقة للأزمة التي حصلت في غزة أو للحرب في غزة، وهم وجدوا هذا فقط كذريعة لتسويق برامجهم وخططهم بشكل عام لتأكيد وجودهم في اليمن. هم قاموا باختطاف والاعتداء على مجموعة من السفن قبل أن توجد الحدث في غزة، وهذا اعتبارا من 2018. بالتأكيد نحن أكدنا أن وجود مثل هذه الجماعات تشكل خطر على السلم والأمن الدوليين، تشكل خطر على الملاحة الدولية، وتشكل بقدر ما تشكل خطر أيضا على اليمن نفسها وعلى الأمن الغذائي بالنسبة للبلاد. ربما الأعمال اللي في البحر الأحمر تسببت بأضرار بالنسبة للشعب اليمني. ارتفعت كلفة التأمينات على السفن، أيضا زادت أسعار كلفة النقل، ويمكن كان من أكثر البلدان تضرراً أشقائنا في مصر حوالي 8 مليار دولار كانت خسائرهم نتيجة هذه الأعمال. بالتأكيد كان هناك اتفاق على خارطة الطريق والتي تمهد إلى وجود هدنة طويلة المدى، وبعدها تتبعها مجموعة من الأعمال المتعلقة بالجانب الإنساني، سواء فيما يتعلق بدفع مرتبات الموظفين، بفتح المطارات والموانئ، وأيضا تصدير النفط إلى الخارج. أتت هذه الأعمال في البحر الأحمر لتجمد خارطة الطريق، ونعتقد أنه لا يمكن العمل بخارطة الطريق بمعزل عن هذه الأعمال الموجودة في البحر الأحمر، ولا بد أن تتوقف حتى نستطيع العودة إلى خارطة الطريق وننظر إلى آفاق السلام التي بالنسبة لنا مطلب رئيسي كحكومة يمنية، ونعتقد أن هذا أيضا مطلب أشقائنا في الإقليم وأيضا كل الدول المحبة للأمن والسلام في العالم.
Thank you, Minister. So the roadmap has also been affected by the Red Sea crisis, and thank you also for stressing the humanitarian impact of the Red Sea crisis. State Minister Oman, the Houthis' attacks against commercial vessels have in some cases reached even the Gulf of Aden. How does the Red Sea impact on the Horn of Africa, and how specifically it is affecting Somalia, its security and economic interests?
Thank you. The importance of Red Sea was spoken for the last day or two. Red Sea connects a very strategic choke points of Suez Canal and also Bab el-Mandeb. Red Sea importance was not new. Even late 19th century, the French, Italian, and British were also still curving the area of Red Sea. So Red Sea importance is well known. The question is how it impacts. It impacts in two ways. It impacts both in security and also in economics. If we look in the security side, the rivalry of the emerging countries and also the global powers in the region, that competition has created a bit challenges on the states in the region, both Somalia and Yemen and also others in the region. It has weakened the governance. It has created a platform for the terror groups, whether it's Al-Houthis or Al-Shabaab or ISIS or the likes. In terms of economics, the security issue has created a rise, the cost of the insurance, cost of the shipping, delays of the deliveries, and also it impacted the investment opportunities of that region. For example, Somalia would like to have more ports developed, but because of the security issue, the investments are always challenges because nobody wants to invest where the security is concerned. So the question is, what are the root causes of this security issue in the region? I think the root causes are mostly external interventions of the region. There are superpowers, global powers, emerging powers are all competing on creating a proxies in the region that damage the governance, the state institutions of those governments, whether it's Somalia or Yemen. I think the ultimate solution is to help those two countries to establish their own institutions and security infrastructure so they can secure rather than bring in additional forces outside. Those will be only a short-term solution rather than a long-term solution. Then the long-term solution is to help Somalia and Yemen and others in the region to have a security establishment that can secure the region. External forces will not be able to secure. They will just create more insurgents and more crisis. So in a nutshell, the impact of the Red Sea crisis are damaging and causing a humanitarian issue, economic issue, and also security issue in our region. And we hope meetings like this will find a way to enhance and also create more understanding how we can solve in the long-term solution rather than a short-term fixes. The long-term fixes is to help Somalia and Yemen establish secure and better governance in that area. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, State Minister. Very, very strong and important point that you made about also the global power competition between global powers that affects also the stability of the sub-region and the need for Yemen and Somalia also to find a way to improve security conditions in the area together. I would move now to the Mediterranean with a question for Rear Admiral Costantino. 1 year since the start of the Houthis attacks, how does the Red Sea crisis impact the maritime security in the Mediterranean? Also building upon your first-hand experience, how much the Mediterranean security is interlinked with Red Sea security?
Yes, as you said, just 1 year ago, on the 19th of November 2023, motor vessel Galaxy Leader, with a sort of illegal seizure, is still there in Udayda, was attacked by Houthi. So this could be considered a sort of starting point in terms of crisis at sea in the Red Sea. Not only Red Sea, also Gulf of Aden, of course. And you are well aware, 2 choke points, Suez, Bab el-Mandeb, strategic stroke points, just because able to connect the east, the Far East, with the Mediterranean basin. So it's crucial to say that the Mediterranean basin is strictly interconnected with the rest of the world, thanks these choke points, such as Gibraltar, of course. And so we are talking about this sort of starting point, followed by a growing attack at sea with drones, with missile by Houthi against a wide range of ships. We're talking about oil tanker, bulk carrier, and so on. Indiscriminate attack, not only towards a specific flag, also because, you know, behind a single merchant ship, there is a set of flags. Flags of the owner, flags of the ship, port registry, flags of the beneficial owner, flags of the crew, so that the attack against the motor vessel, is an attack against a global good, sea line of communication, sea trade. So more than a few companies, shipping companies, decided to turn around Good Hope Cape. So this means a delay in terms of transit towards Europe and an increasing level of cost. We recorded, for instance, the cost of single containers coming from Shanghai to Italy at a level of more or less 2 times comparing with the pre-crisis period. So it's important to take into account this. But the persistence of this crisis, the risk of this persistence is towards our ports, the level of the traffic in our ports. You can imagine what that means in terms of not only global economy, but regional economy. And let me stress that we are facing a challenge not only in terms of trans-regional need, but also regional, because the stability of the area depends on the economic dynamics, and we cannot allow increasing stability in the region. So that it's important to stress that we're talking about not only Red Sea, but also Mediterranean area and Gulf of Aden, of course.
Thank you, Real Admiral. I perfectly agree with the fact that trans-regional threats then become regional threats when they directly affect the commercial and security relations, for instance, in the Mediterranean. And also thank you for remembering the Galaxy Leader ship and the crew of the Galaxy Leader, which is still currently detained by the Houthis. And if I remember well, these people are most Asian, from Asia. So another continent, and this stresses the connection between different realities that the Red Sea crisis epitomizes. Dr. Aleriani, I would straight our focus now on Yemen. Since the attacks against the commercial vessels and also against Israel have allowed the Houthis to strengthen their visibility and also their regional standing in the so-called axis of resistance led by Iran. And we see now how much these attacks in the Red Sea have also altered the perceptions that the Western audiences have about the Houthis with respect to 1 year ago. And this differs a lot from the GCC states that were already aware about the level and I would also say the intractability of the threat coming from the Houthis. So what do the Houthis aim to achieve with the opening of the Red Sea front and also with the attacks more broadly against Israel?
Thank you, and I'm honored to be among this esteemed panel. If we want to answer the question about why the Houthis are doing what they're doing in the Red Sea, we have to also understand what is their motivation and goal in the mid and short to mid-term, let's say. Their long-term goal is something else. We can talk about it maybe if there is time. But if we focus on their mid and short, their short and mid-term goals, we can think that they are working in 3 theaters. The first one is international and regional, vis-a-vis their opponents, their foes. The other one is regional with their friends, as we call them the axis of resistance, or the Iranian allied groups, or proxies, as some people like to call them. And the third theater is domestic. And the domestic theater is not separate, is not disconnected from the other theaters. So internationally and regionally, the Houthis have been seeking recognition. For 10 years, this has been their main goal. Even if not official recognition, but de facto recognition. And I think there has been a turning point in this regard in the past few years. We know that there have been, for example, talks between the Houthis and Saudis in the earlier years of the war, but these only became high profile and public in the last few years, and this was a turning point for the Houthis with regard to their goal for this recognition. They also, they are very much aware that there are international powers that are lining up to talk to Houthi representatives to maybe inject some reason to try to support a settlement so that they can de-escalate the situation. I think the Houthis are very much enjoying this moment of recognition. The other theater is with their friends, their allies among the Iranian groups. And here we can see that the Houthis have, as we have seen them do before, turn a challenge into an opportunity. We see that they have been propelled to the forefront of the axis of resistance among the other groups, especially with the weakening of Hezbollah, even if temporary, and the escalation in the region. And here we saw that the Houthis sought to graduate from that earlier position they had, that they were perceived to be a domestic rebel group, confined within the southern Arabia, a pressure point on Saudi Arabia that Iran uses when it needs, and so on. Now the Houthis sought to graduate from this and become a regional actor, and it looks like they are succeeding in that goal. And they're proving their utility to Iran and the other groups. Although this utility, we have to be careful, can become a liability if the calculus of Iran changes down the line. But this is a very important moment for the Houthis because they really became a regional actor, and this is the reason why we are speaking about them in an international forum like this. And we will see kind of more about this role, especially in relation to their networks within the Horn of Africa and the African continent, beyond even the Horn of Africa. We are seeing collaborations with groups like Al-Shabaab and even beyond that, particularly on weapon smuggling and commerce and so on. And the third theater, which is the domestic theater, and it is usually not, little attention is paid to that dimension of things, but it is connected to what is happening in these regional and international arenas. And basically for the Houthis, what they want domestically is to operate like a state, but without the responsibility of governance. So they outsource governance responsibilities such as payment of salaries and other things to Saudi Arabia, for example, to the UN, and so on. They also have been militarizing the population basically through and through. I mean, from very young children to youth and older. And this does half the job for them, because if you, in 10 years, 15 years, you have a militarized population who has internalized that there are no other options but to join the front line because the world is against them, then you have a population that you can control more easily. And they also continue to extract from the population, and we know that Yemen, the poverty is quite severe in Yemen, but they are very, very effective tax collectors, and they continue to have access to public revenues. And of course, we know that their goal, I mean, they have specific kind of pressure points that they respond to. We can talk about them in a little bit, but basically, domestically, this is what they are working on. They have totalitarian tendencies, they govern through fear, and they continue to try to control the population. They also realized that after the April 22 ceasefire and the lull that followed up until 7 October, when they decided to go into the Red Sea in November, basically that they will need to answer to a population that is starting to demand more because of this moment of peace that the population was becoming aware of. And so I think they also realized that they need to have a perpetual state of war and threat so that they can continue to control the population. And I think to understand what is, why the Houthis are doing what they're doing in the Red Sea, we have to see this bigger picture of what motivates them and what drives them forward.
Thank you, Dr. Aleriani. I would like to stress 2 points from your speech. The first one is the fact that the Red Sea front has been opened by the Houthis for a series of reasons in their strategy. And this highlights how much the Yemen war is multi-layered. We have to remember that the Yemen war starts as a domestic conflict, a political conflict, and then it gradually also becomes a regional, indirect conflict between powers. So the domestic and the regional layer, and now also the global layer of the conflict in the Red Sea. And the second point, very, very crucial for our also conference, the risk which unfortunately has become a reality of the militarization of the society and the next generation. And this was also raised yesterday in other panels looking at what's going on in the Middle East. The risk to have a militarized next generation of people, of young people in the country, and also in the Middle East. Thank you. Minister Zindani, before your appointment as foreign minister, you served also as Yemeni ambassador to Saudi Arabia. And so I would like to ask you, which are your current expectations about Saudi Arabia's support to Yemen, also in the context of the Red Sea crisis?
شكرا جزيلا. في الواقع نعرف أن العلاقات اليمن بالمملكة العربية السعودية هي علاقات تاريخية، وبالتأكيد هناك كثير من الروابط التاريخية والسياسية والاجتماعية، ولا يمكن النظر للأوضاع في اليمن والأمن في المنطقة بمعزل أيضا عن الأمن في اليمن، وهذا يؤثر بشكل مباشر على الأشقاء في المملكة العربية السعودية وأيضا على دول الخليج بشكل عام. موقع اليمن الاستراتيجي يشكل اهتمام ليس بالنسبة لدول المنطقة ولكن أيضا بالنسبة للمجتمع الدولي بشكل عام. ونلاحظ أن هذه الأزمة الموجودة في البحر الأحمر وسيطرة اليمن على باب المندب أثرت أيضا على التجارة العالمية وعلى السلم والأمن الدوليين. في الواقع المملكة العربية السعودية هي كانت داعمة للحكومة في اليمن، ولأن الأمر لا يتعلق باليمن لوحدها ولكن أيضا يتعلق بالأمن والسلام في المنطقة. ولو نعود إلى خلفية القرارات الأممية من مجلس الأمن الدولي، كان هنا قرار 2216 وهذا القرار اتخذ تحت البند السابع، وهذا لا يتخذ مثل هذه القرارات إلا عندما يكون هناك تهديد للسلم والأمن الدوليين. لكن للأسف تراخي المجتمع الدولي في التعامل مع هذه القرارات شجع الحوثيين وشجع إيران على التمادي بمزيد من التصعيد، ووصلنا الحال إلى ما وصلنا إليه. الحكومة كانت قادرة على حسم الأمور في وقت مبكر، ولكن كنا نطالب بالحل السياسي، وكانت هذه الحديد الآن الميناء الذي ينطلق منه الحوثيين كان السلطة الحكومة قريبة من السيطرة عليه خلال يومين في عام 2018، ومورست الضغوط على الحكومة من قبل المجتمع الدولي ومنعت قواتنا من الدخول، وأخذنا إلى ستوكهولم ووقعنا هذه الاتفاقية التي لم ينفذ منها الحوثيين أي شيء، والآن المجتمع الدولي نفسه هو يدفع الثمن نتيجة هذا التراخي مع الحوثيين. لهذا نحن نعتقد أن المسألة لا تتعلق بالمملكة العربية السعودية، ولكن لابد أن تكون هناك مقاربة جديدة للتعامل مع الحوثيين من قبل المجتمع الدولي والإقليم. نرى أولاً بأهمية دعم الحكومة اليمنية لكي تتمكن من فرض سيطرتها على كافة الشواطئ والسواحل اليمنية، وبالذات على البحر الأحمر وأيضاً الدول المجاورة مثل الصومال وجيبوتي. النقطة الأخرى، لابد أن يكون هناك آلية موحدة للعمل في مواجهة الحوثيين، بمعنى أنه هناك لابد أن يكون في اتفاق جهود إقليمية دولية أيضا مع الحكومة لكي نعمل على مواجهة هذا التصعيد الموجود في البحر الأحمر. والجانب الآخر أيضا نرى أن مقاربة عملية السلام لابد أن تكون ضمن رؤية تخدم مصالح الشعب اليمني. هذه الجماعة الحوثيين أولا تعتمد على الدعم الإيراني، الصواريخ التي تستخدم هي من إيران، الطائرات المسيرة هي من إيران، ولم نرى هناك جهود حقيقية خلال 10 سنوات لتنفيذ قرارات مجلس الأمن بحظر توريد الأسلحة للحوثيين. وهذه نقطة مهمة أيضا نعتقد أنه على المجتمع الدولي أن يوليها اهتمام، هي أن يطبق ما وجد في قرارات مجلس الأمن لمنع وصول هذه الأسلحة للحوثيين، وبالذات الأسلحة اللي تشكل تهديد استراتيجي للمنطقة بشكل عام. الجانب الآخر نحن أيضا نرى أن نحن مع جنبا إلى جنب مع دعم جهود السلام، الجهود اللي تبذلها المملكة العربية السعودية، المبعوث الأممي، الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية أيضا، وأيضا سلطنة عمان وكل الدول معنا، من أجل نوصل إلى عملية سلام حقيقية تأخذ بعين الاعتبار مصالح الشعب اليمني، لأننا للأسف أمام مجموعة انقلابية لا تؤمن بالحل السياسي وتعتقد أن لها الحق الإلهي في الحكم للشعب اليمني، وهذه جماعة إيديولوجية ليس من السهل أن نتفاهم معها سياسياً. ولهذا نرى أنه من المهم جداً لكي يكون هناك تشخيص وتقييم حقيقي للأوضاع في اليمن وتأثير اليمن أيضاً على السلم والأمن الدوليين، أن يكون هناك تعامل واضح في ضوء المعطيات الموجودة على الأرض.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Just a short follow-up question. You strengthen now the need for a new approach by also international powers to Yemen and to the Red Sea crisis. However, the anti-Houthi front in Yemen has usually been deeply divided and fragmented. So is it the internationally recognized government ready to be a strong interlocutor for the international community, improving the level of coherence and union about this point in order to build with the international community a new approach to the Red Sea crisis?
أعتقد الآن في الوقت الراهن بعد أزمة البحر الأحمر هناك تقريبا تغيير إيجابي على الصعيد الدولي، وخاصة فيما يتعلق بالاتحاد الأوروبي وكثير من الدول في نظرتهم وتصنيفهم للحوثيين. ونلاحظ أن بعض الدول أيضا قد اتخذت قرارات بتصنيف الحوثيين كجماعة إرهابية، وهذا نعتقد نقطة مهمة وتحول أيضا في سياسة هذه البلدان، وهذا من شأنه أن يعزز العلاقات مع الحكومة اليمنية ويمكننا جميعا من ممارسة الضغط على الحوثيين لكي تتجه نحو السلام. الحرب ليست مطلب بالنسبة لنا، ولكن الحرب فرضت علينا وعلى شعبنا، ليس هناك مصلحة لأي بلد في الحرب على الإطلاق. هذه هي تحسب من عمر الأجيال القادمة ومن تطور اليمن وشعبها ومستقبلها. نحن نطمح إلى أن نتبع كل الوسائل المكملة من أجل تحقيق السلام، وهذه بالنسبة لنا رغبة أكيدة لأنها تمثل أيضا تطلعات ومصالح اليمن بشكل عام، ونمد أيدينا لكل الدول التي لديها رغبة حقيقية في المساعدة. نحن لا نبحث عن سلطة ولا ننجر إلى أي صراعات لا تأخذ بعين الاعتبار مصالح اليمن، والحوثيين بالفعل استلموا كثير من الإشارات الخاطئة في الماضي. كما تفضلت الدكتورة، هم كانوا يسعوا للحصول على الاعتراف بهم كحكومة لأنهم موجودين على الأرض ولديهم القوة، لكن لدينا الإمكانية كحكومة إذا ما تم يفرض الخيار العسكري، أعتقد أن الحوثيين لا يتمكنوا من الصمود على الأرض، لأنه لا توجد لهم لا قاعدة اجتماعية ولا قاعدة شعبية على الإطلاق، ولكنهم يمارسوا القهر والقمع أيضا في المناطق اللي هي تحت سيطرتهم.
Thank you. Thank you so much. State Minister, non-state actors are active both in Yemen and Somalia, also controlling coastal areas, which are key for maritime security. The latest panel of experts, the latest report of the UN about Yemen highlights, and here I quote the UN report, the increasing collaborative efforts between the Houthis and Al-Shabaab in the illicit transfer and smuggling of weapons. Here, the quote stops. And so stressing the regional security risks that are connected to such a cooperation. How do you comment on this? Which are your reflections?
No, thank you. First, we have to understand both Shabaab and Houthis have emerged from external interventionists. For Shabaab has emerged the 2006-2007 invasion of Ethiopian forces to Somalia, and that was the result, because that has degraded the governance system in Somalia and created a vacuum where the Al-Shabaab and terror groups have emerged. In the past 10 years, Somali government was building Somali security forces, and in the past 2 years, we were fighting with Al-Shabaab. We have removed it, we have liberated 2 states out of the forest they were occupying. And that has degraded the Al-Shabaab's existence in Somalia. So they sought a help, and the help come now from the Houthis. There's a growing report that the armies, the new armament are coming from the Houthi side to the Al-Shabaab. There are new technologies that they are using, new kind of missiles, new IEDs. So the help is from Houthi to Shabaab, not vice versa. And the reports are showing that there's a growing existence, and that's a challenge for Somalia. Because we were gaining momentum against Al-Shabaab, we were degrading their existence in Somalia, but the help of Houthis will give them some momentum, some energy. But hopefully, I think we are talking with our Yemeni brothers. We have to find a way to stop this illicit arms smuggling to Somalia. All these insurgent groups have a route to external influences. In Somalia, when we look at Al-Shabaab has 3 main components. One component is about 20% of Al-Shabaab are ideological. The remaining 8% are either grievances within the political system of Somalia or a economic reason they are joining it. I'm sure similar thing also exists on the other side. So if we find a solution in the local grievances, I think that will go a long way to create a condition that Al-Shabaab can be degraded and can be removed out of Somalia. But in general, as I said before, I think help for the 2 countries is essential to create a long-lasting solution. I think bringing major navies to the region will simply create more emboldened insurgent groups, and may create a short-term solution, but in the long term, we have to help and support the fragile governments that exist both in Yemen and Somalia. and that will create more long-term solution in the region. And also we have to discourage the external interventionists. For example, Ethiopia have signed an MOU, one of the Somali region called Somaliland, Northern Somalia. That will create another crisis because the local grassroots against that MOU will sought help from either ISIS or whoever they can get. So to have another insurgent group in the northern Somalia will create a more difficult problem in the Gulf of Aden, because on the northern side of Gulf of Aden you have Houthi, and on the southern side, if you get another insurgent group, that will create a major issue, and I think that is something that we need to discourage external interventionists in the region. I think both Yemen and Somalia are a victim of external influences and external interventionists. We were both in that region for thousands of years, and we never had problems like this. I think these are all in the result of what happened 9/11. After that, it has created momentum for major powers and major emerging powers in the region to use proxies in both Somalia and Yemen.
Thank you, State Minister. So a stable and viable Red Sea, a maritime waterway which is open to freedom of navigation is crucial, is decisive also to contain recruitment by armed groups also in Somalia. Thank you very much. I would return to Rear Admiral Costantino with a question on EUNAVFOR Aspides. How do you assess the results of the naval mission in ensuring safe transit through the Red Sea so far? And also, can its effectiveness be enhanced, taking into account that Aspides has a defensive mandate, and also that other European naval assets are currently deployed in the sub-region? I think, for instance, to EUNAVFOR Atalanta, the operation to deter, prevent, and repress acts of piracy off the coast of Somalia.
So it's not so easy to answer to your question in terms of outcomes, results of a military task force. I jot down a set of keywords taking account the speech already done, such as military solution, short-term solution, new approach, humanitarian issue, deterrence, and so on. I would like to touch this point in my answer, just because I'm quite sure that we cannot solve this issue only with a military tool. Indeed, EUNAVFOR Aspides is just one tool in the hand of the European Union in terms of integrated approach, first of all. Second, I would like to say that the Aspides could be considered, let me say, a successful story. Just because in January 2024, United Nations signed a resolution 2722, and 1 month later, a set of warship already at sea in order to turn words into action. Action means presence, with a sort of a threefold mandate to guarantee a situational awareness, what's going on at sea, to accompany the merchant vessel, and to protect. All these tasks with a de-escalatory posture. The escalatory posture could be considered a key point in order to avoid any kind of escalation, taking account the behavior of duty. So it's crucial, the mandate of the European Union, not so easy to to carry out, but it's important, the presence. And I would like to take into account also a specific event in order to show how is important the presence, and so that also the result of Aspides. Just a few months ago, motor vessel Soyunion, hit by the missile, was this vessel drifting along the sea line of communication in the Red Sea with 150,000 of tons of oil. You can imagine in terms of environment disaster. So, thanks let me say, the presence of the warships in a high-risk area where it's quite impossible to, let me say, to support a vessel in distress with a high risk, it was possible to move the ship in a safe place and to contain the risk and to save the entire area in terms of environment risk. Thanks to the presence of Aspides. So Aspides is a tool. Depend on the willingness of not only European Union, but all the countries to collaborate. And so that I would like to touch another keywords, the cooperation, the inclusiveness of Aspides, ready to collaborate with all the actors at different levels involved in maritime security. Maritime security means safety. So it's important, and the approach of the European Union towards the local community, the coastal state, we cannot to face this challenge without the support of the coastal states. And we are on the right track. What do you need? Persistency and the consistency. The continuous support by the European Union members, navies, in order to fuel the mission, to guarantee the presence of the warship. Thanks to the presence of the warship, I would like to say that we can also invest in the so-called, naval diplomacy. So warship, in order to guarantee the dialogue, in order to support the collaboration at different levels, not only at military level, but also as a tool in the hand of the European Union at interagency level.
Thank you. Thank you, Real Admiral. So persistency is the key word, and the goal is naval diplomacy, also with regional partners. And here I would move to Dr. Aleriani. What has been the stance of the GCC states with regard to naval operations in the Red Sea so far? And do you expect any change in posture, in political choices by the GCC states with the elected US President Trump?
The GCC states have not had a unified approach, let's say. There are, again, back to the 3 points, but there are 3 approaches from the GCC states. There is the UAE approach, and the UAE is, of course, it has established its position in the southern Red Sea, and it feels that it needs to protect its interests there. So the UAE perhaps would be willing to take further action to limit what the Houthis are doing in the Red Sea and to limit their outreach, but it is also not going to take that move without Saudi taking the first step and without some US security guarantees. If we think about the position or the stance of Saudi Arabia, since basically April 2022 and the beginning of the ceasefire and the kind of the Saudi Houthi talks going into a serious direction, the Saudis have decided that they don't want to go back to the pre-April 2022 situation or context. They feel that they need to pacify they need to de-escalate, they have to focus on their economic interests, and the economic, there's high stakes when it comes to the economy for Saudi Arabia and also for the UAE. And so for Saudi, it will do whatever it can. Sometimes it seems that it will do it at any cost to avoid going back to a direct confrontation with the Houthis. We have also seen that they saw that the only way to really contain the situation with the Houthis and protect their national interests and ensure that there are no more missiles coming into their territory is that they went into the agreement with Iran, brokered by Beijing. Most of the items were referring to the Houthis. So this was their approach to deal with the Houthis and get the guarantees from Iran and China. The third stance within the GCC, let's say, is more containment, more trying to work within the context and the Yemeni and regional context. We can think of maybe Oman working as a mediator in this front, perhaps Qatar, but I think their position is also going to be challenged, especially with the Trump administration. We can imagine that they will not have the same space to, for example, host Houthi representatives and provide that space for the mediation. So at the moment, we don't have a unified stance from the GCC, and I think this is part of the problem. And if we think about really what should be the type of cooperation, we have to think of more comprehensive multilateral approach to deal with this crisis. We need to see some alignment between the different approaches within GCC, but we also have to engage the littoral states to the Red Sea because their security interests are at stake, really, in the Horn of Africa and Egypt, as we've heard yesterday with the Excellency Foreign Minister of Egypt, who said that the loss from the Suez Canal exceeded $80 billion. This is huge. So I think we need to really think about more a strategic approach to deal with the situation rather than every state dealing with it in isolation to protect its own interests, because this is not very sustainable.
Thank you, Dr. Aleriani. I agree on these nuanced positions that the GCC states have pursued and shown so far with regard to the Red Sea crisis. I have two final, very short questions, asking kindly for very short answers for our ministries. And the first question to Minister Zindani is, what do you think about the growing activism of Russia in Yemen? And then I will ask to State Minister Omar, what do you think about China and the intensification of diplomatic contacts that China has in the sub-region, in the Gulf of Aden, in the Southern Red Sea? And do you think that China can be a stabilizer, a player of stabilization in the area? So please, Minister Zindani, you can start.
بالنسبة لنا طبيعي روسيا هي دولة من الدول العظمى موجودة في مجلس الأمن الدولي، وأيضا يهمنا كحكومة يمنية أن نتعامل مع كافة الدول التي تدعم أيضا قضيتنا وتدعم أيضا الجهود السلمية في اليمن. بالنسبة لنا على الصعيد الرسمي كحكومة يمنية لم نلمس أي شيء من روسيا يتعارض مع هذا التوجه، وكانت روسيا في مجلس الأمن مع كافة القرارات التي اتخذت لدعم الحكومة اليمنية، ورغم الاختلافات اللي موجودة بين الدول في بعض الجزئيات. حاليا روسيا هي عبرت عن رغبتها بالتعاون معنا، وأعلنوا بشكل مبدئي عن إعادة فتح السفارة الروسية في عدن، وهذه نحن نعتبرها خطوة متقدمة، ونشجع كافة الدول أن يتواجدوا في عاصمة الدولة عدن، وهي عاصمة مؤقتة، وأيضا كافة المنظمات الدولية العاملة في اليمن بشكل عام. هناك معلومات تتردد عن العلاقة بين الحوثيين وروسيا. روسيا أكدت لنا بشكل قاطع أن جهودها مع الحوثيين هي باتجاه عملية السلام مثلها مثل الدول الأخرى، ونفوا كل ما نسب إليهم من دعم الحوثيين أو تقديم المساعدات العسكرية لهم. فتقريبا هذا الوضع اللي موجود بالنسبة لروسيا وموقفها في اليمن.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Thank you so much. State Minister Oman.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, China is a growing economic power. I think it is interest in the region is a positive. I think it will create more economic interest, more economic competition of the region. We have not seen anything that concerns about the security of the region, even though China has a military base in Djibouti, which is also on the Red Sea. So, I mean, all other nations, whether it's France or US or many other countries have military bases in Djibouti. But China's interest in the region is mostly economic. I mean, they built a lot of good infrastructure, both in Djibouti, Ethiopia, and Kenya. I think that's a very positive, and we welcome, and we don't see anything that affects the security of either Red Sea or Gulf of Aden or on the Horn. So in general, to have more options, economic development, I think is a positive thing to have.
Thank you. Thank you to all our distinguished guests for joining this very rich and insightful conversation, and thank you to the public who attended this session. Have a nice day.